Picture a moment almost everyone has lived through at least once. You're on your way to work, already a little behind schedule, when suddenly a warning light flashes on your dashboard. Your stomach tightens instantly. You know, logically, that fixing the issue right now would probably cost around $300. But then reality hits. You check your bank balance and see that you have exactly $42 left until Friday. So you make a choice. You pretend nothing is wrong. You turn the radio up louder to cover the strange noise. You hope for the best. Weeks pass, then months, and eventually the problem you ignored doesn't stay small. One day your car dies on the highway. Now you need a tow truck, which costs $200. The original issue you avoided has damaged your transmission, and the repair bill jumps to $2,000. On top of that, you miss 2 work shifts and lose $300 in wages. What started as a $300 problem has exploded into a $2,500 disaster. This isn't bad luck. This is math. This is the measurable, predictable cost of not having money when you need it. I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about the invisible mechanics of wealth and the equations that quietly keep people running in place. If you feel like you work harder every year, but your bank balance never moves, or if one unexpected expense could destroy your entire financial year, then this conversation is for you. Today isn't about stocks, crypto, or shortcuts to getting rich. It's about something more dangerous. It's about why being broke is one of the most expensive positions a person can be in. Most financial advice gets this completely wrong. You're told that wealth comes from discipline and that poverty is the result of bad habits. You hear advice like cutting out lattes or canceling Netflix, as if saving $12 a month is going to change your life. But that thinking ignores a basic economic reality known as the Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. The idea comes from a fictional character named Sam Vimes in a Terry Pratchett novel, and it explains inequality better than many academic papers. Imagine 2 people. One has money, the other doesn't. The person with money buys a pair of $50 boots. They're well-made, durable, and last for 10 years. The person without money can't afford $50. They only have $10, so they buy cheap boots that fall apart after 1 season. Every year, they spend another $10. Over 10 years, the poorer person spends $100 on boots, double what the richer person paid, and still ends up uncomfortable. The wealthier person stays dry, comfortable, and $50 ahead. That's the math of being poor. You're charged extra for lacking capital. This isn't just a story about boots. Look around in modern life and you'll see the same pattern everywhere. Take something as simple as toilet paper. If you have $50 available, you can buy a bulk pack from Costco or Sam's Club and pay about 50 cents per roll. You're set for months. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have $50 to lock up in household supplies. You have $4. So you go to the corner store and buy a small pack where each roll costs $1.50. You're paying 3 times more for the exact same product because you couldn't afford the bulk option. This is the poverty premium. It applies to laundry detergent, diapers, mayonnaise, and almost every non-perishable item in your home. If you're broke, your personal inflation rate is effectively higher because you're locked out of economies of scale. And it gets worse when you look at the banking system. If you have $10,000 in your checking account, banks treat you like royalty. No fees, free services, maybe even a little interest. But if you're struggling and only have $20, a forgotten $25 subscription can push you $5 negative. The bank doesn't show compassion. They charge you a $35 overdraft fee. Think about that. You effectively borrowed $5 for a day and paid $35 for it. That's a 700% interest rate. If an individual charged that, it would be illegal. When banks do it, it's policy. Every year, banks make billions in overdraft fees, mostly from people with less than $1,000 to their name. The rich earn interest. The poor pay it. It's a quiet wealth transfer disguised as fees. People often respond by saying, just don't spend money you don't have. In theory, that sounds reasonable. In reality, psychology matters. When someone is under constant financial stress, their brain changes. Research shows that worrying about money can reduce functional IQ by about 13 points, the equivalent of missing a full night of sleep. When survival dominates your thoughts, long-term planning becomes biologically harder. That's why people in financial distress take payday loans with 400% interest, buy lottery tickets, or rely on fast food instead of cooking. It's not stupidity, it's cognitive overload. The boots theory isn't just about money, it's about mental energy. The person who can afford stability also buys peace of mind. The person who can't is trapped in constant low-level panic. This shows up clearly with cars. In most of the United States, you need a car to work. A wealthier person buys a 3-year-old Toyota or Honda for around $20,000, often with cash or a loan at 4 or 5%. That car runs reliably for a decade. Total ownership cost stays low. Meanwhile, someone with bad credit and no savings goes to a buy here, pay here lot. They're sold a high-mileage car worth $4,000 for $8,000 at 24% interest. Over time, they might pay $15,000 for it, and the car often breaks down before the loan is finished, forcing them to keep paying for a car that no longer runs. That's the poverty trap in full clarity. You're charged a risk premium because you're considered risky, but the only way to stop being risky is to have money you can't save because of that premium. Housing makes this even clearer. Renting is the ultimate boots theory example. Rent is 100% interest. You gain no equity. You pay your landlord's mortgage plus profit. To buy a home, you need $10,000 or $20,000 for a down payment. But if rent eats up 50% of your income, saving becomes impossible. You might pay $2,000 a month in rent for a place that would cost $1,200 if you owned it. The wealthier person builds equity and lowers expenses. The poorer person pays more forever for something they'll never own. Poverty also taxes your time. Doing laundry at home takes minutes. Going to a laundromat costs $5 and 2 hours of your life. Living in a food desert means higher prices and longer travel times. Everything takes longer. Everything is harder. And by stealing your time, poverty steals your future earning potential. This is depressing, but understanding the math is the only escape. Traditional advice says to chase an 8% return in the stock market, but if you're poor, your best investment is eliminating the penalties. Paying off a credit card charging 20% interest is a guaranteed 20% return. Buying a $50 toaster instead of replacing a $10 one every year is an investment. The first real step isn't getting rich, it's stopping the bleeding. That's why the first $1,000 emergency fund matters so much. With $1,000 saved, a flat tire becomes an inconvenience instead of a crisis. It lets you raise deductibles, lower premiums, buy in bulk, and fix problems early. That first buffer is the hardest money to save, but it's the most powerful. It turns survival into strategy. You have to start seeing purchases as permanent solutions, not temporary relief. The system depends on you ignoring this math. Late fees, overdrafts, disposable products, they're counting on it. Once you understand the boots theory, you become a bad customer for them and a good CFO for your own life. The action step is simple but uncomfortable. Audit your life for poverty penalties. Identify where you're losing money because you don't have money. Then cut everything else until you can plug that leak. Selling clothes or working DoorDash to fix a car isn't just extra income, it's a strategic move against future costs. This journey isn't fair. Going from $0 to $10,000 is far harder than going from $10,000 to $100,000. But once you understand that poverty is a mathematical penalty, you stop blaming yourself and start attacking the penalties instead. You buy the boots that last. You buy the freedom to say no. And eventually, you walk out of the trap. If this made you realize you've been paying the poverty premium without knowing it, share it with someone who needs to hear it. We don't talk enough about the traps. And subscribe, because we'll keep breaking down these hidden financial truths until everyone can finally afford the boots that last.